What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the 20 Percenters, where we focus on what matters: health, wealth, relationships, and time. And I've got the honor of sitting down with Dr. Michael Andreula, owner of Valley Spinal Care. Appreciate you being here today, man. It's been a long time coming.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, man. So we were talking off the mic, and I think this is the perfect time to have you on the show because we've walked very similar paths in our entrepreneurial progression. And I can remember when your office was right down the street from CrossFit PHX, you just beating the street, wearing holes in your shoes, knocking on doors, trying to create relationships and gather business. And that was about the same time I had just printed off 1,000 flyers to go do the same thing and plaster windshields, right? And what we were talking about off the mic is that entrepreneurial trajectory, right? Where when you're gathering momentum, how much work is actually required to move the needle. And then eventually you get to a point where you can be very strategic with how you spend your energy, who you spend your time with, where your effort goes, right? And that's, to me, so far, one of the signs of success, above and beyond money and all that other good stuff, is that conservation of energy, right? It doesn't take a whole lot of movement to create, to keep that momentum going now.
Right.
You know what I mean? But you've been making a lot of moves lately, man. For everybody who doesn't know who you are, walk us through your path as a chiropractor.
Basically, I came out of ASU. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. Was a business, minored in religion. Basically pure history. I love religion. I'm a religious man myself. Didn't know what I was doing. I was going into commercial real estate, and then also I wanted to go into finance. And I'm like, oh, this is great. So basically, I stumbled upon chiropractic, had terrible headaches, and then went on a snowboarding trip with my boys, thinking I was like the X Games guy. This is back in 2002.
Okay.
When I believe Park City had the Olympics, right? Now, at the time, I was pretty good. I'd go over on whatever. Well, I landed wrong. Didn't think anything about it. Ended up hurting myself.
Okay.
No one could really figure it out. Medical field couldn't figure it out. Neurologists couldn't figure it out. And so I went to a chiropractor. I was like, yeah, these guys don't know what the hell they're talking about. Why the heck would I go there?
Yeah.
Ends up, you're into it. I realized these guys know what the heck they're talking about. This is a different way of serving others through healthcare. And I was like, this is kind of cool. I was like, I like this. I want to create a value to a person and essentially change their life in a different way. You know? And so I kind of went into chiropractic, moved out to Dallas, graduated. I met during that time, before going out to Dallas, my wife actually was the one that submitted my application. She's the one that made me go because I was very timid. Yes.
Okay.
And she's like, oh, by the way, your interview with the dean is in 2 weeks. We're going out to Dallas. No joke. We went out there, found an apartment, moved out 2 weeks later, started school. I was never a good student. I mean, actually awful student. Was put on probation my first year at ASU. I had a 1.0 GPA. They would not let me take more than 12 credit hours because I was so bad.
Right.
Mostly because I didn't give a shit.
Right.
Graduated on time, everything at Parker. Was first in my class out of clinic.
Wow.
Meaning basically I was done 3 months ahead of everybody else. I realized at that time I'm good at getting patients. I'm good at getting patients better.
Yeah.
And so I took pride in that. And so I was like, all right, well, I might not be great with the books.
Sure.
But I damn well can get somebody better and basically, overpromise what I told them I was
the application of it, yeah.
Right. So moved out to Arizona. I had a pretty sweet deal in the contact of over those past 4 or 5 years at school. Made a great contact with Dr. Maynard, who was the location at that time across from your practice.
Yeah.
And he still is today the chiropractor of the Cardinals. He was a chiropractor for some of the PGA, Diamondbacks. Huge dude, big in the sports.
Right.
Me loving sports, I was like, that's exactly what I want to do. I'll be big time. I could learn how to do it, and I'll slide in there and work my own way.
Yeah.
Well, that's not how things go. I basically went in there, and he goes, no, you're going to develop your own practice. And he goes, yeah, over time, we can start working on these athletes. So I said, okay, whatever. I started doing it, started working on athletes. I was like, man, this is pretty cool. I'm
Yeah.
working on it at the time. It was the Cardinals were in their heyday. Darnold Dockett, Calais Campbell. I'm like, dude, look at me, man. I'm big time. And all the time I'm basically fronting this instant success, which behind the scenes I wasn't getting. I was basically lying to myself, lying to my friends, and basically my whole life I've been trying to prove people wrong.
Okay.
Right? Kind of go back a little bit. I was always known as the class clown.
Okay.
Known as the guy that's funny, friends with everyone, really not really going to go anywhere in life. And when I got into chiropractic, I was like, well, I'm going to prove everyone wrong. I'm going to go be a doctor.
Yeah.
I'm going to go make some money, right? And that's fueling me, right?
Right.
Oh, better yet, guess what? I graduated. Now I'm working with professional athletes. What the fuck are you doing, right? Yeah, well, humbling came about a year later, and I looked at my finances. And my wife, God bless her, she had a great job for us. But problem is we were living beyond our means.
Yeah.
She was making good money. Problem was we were spending more money. And one night, she looked at me. I looked at her. We paid our bills, and I said, we got $202 to our name. A year after I've been in practice, treating, thinking I'm big time, right?
Right.
And I looked her in the eye and I said, we will not be in this position ever again.
Right.
Ever. I felt this failure. I said, you risked it all. We went, we got my education, I came back, you trusted me. I lost $24,000 my first year in practice. Failure.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
In a way, all that did is put me in a position to realize you haven't done anything, but now you know where you don't want to be again.
Right.
From here is where you're going to grow.
Sure.
And through that time, I did. I stayed with that practice a little bit longer. I started reaching out, sending my wife in because she's way more attractive than I am, way better at vocational skills than I am. Came in, chatted with you. She was, parsing as my marketing director. Really, she wasn't. But I knew she could get in the door a lot better than I could, right?
Right.
How many dudes are beating in CrossFit doors at this time and saying, hey, come see this guy. He obviously knows what he's doing, right?
Right.
And so that's kind of when I met you. And, through that, my business grew and I got, better and better. And I got to a point realizing, for me to be where I want to be financially for a family in the future, maybe sports isn't it. I love sports and I would love to treat athletes, but when it gets down to it, that doesn't make you money.
Sure.
That's flashy. That's shiny.
Right.
What gets down to making money is treating everybody else, treating the common person, treating the people that have other connections with people just like them. Because you can't relate to athletes.
Sure. Right.
You can relate to everybody else. And I was like, that's where the money's made. So I went out and dabbled into a new contact, and which was Dr. Josh over at Valley Spinal Care. And basically, he offered me a job. And I went from being I'm my own boss to now I'm going to work for you.
Yeah, right.
Once again, another humbling experience. But I saw where his business was and where it was growing and where it was going for the future. And it was another, step down. I was like, I'm only going to make $3,000 a month. I'm a fucking doctor.
Yeah.
$3,000 a month, please. I can go do something else and make that. And he said, trust the process.
Yeah.
He goes, do you have faith in the process? This is the process. This is how many patients we see. This is the money we make. And he goes, this is healthcare. This is the future, right? This whole process at Valley Spinal Care. So I went back, talked to my wife, and said, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to go make some less money, figure out a better way. I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. And part of me, it took a lot for me to do that.
Yeah.
Looking back now, I'm like, yeah, dude, no joke, you should do that. Right? But looking back, that was quite a turning point in my life, was to bring myself down. Yeah. I'm a nobody. Yes, I've grown some patience. But there's got to be a better way.
Sure.
There's got to be a better way to do what I'm doing.
Right.
And I don't want to just do what I'm doing, but I want to do it better than everyone else.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I would say, from what I can see, the outside looking in, you've done that. Watching the growth of your practice, as many of my members that go see you, even though it's quite a journey now, that it really speaks to the value that you bring to the table, because right across the street and around the corner, there's there's probably 4 clinics within arm's reach.
Absolutely.
Right here.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? But when you've created not only the relationship, but you've got the track record of taking care of people, not just making them better, but taking care of them.
Correct.
Right? You've done what we've done at CrossFit PHX in creating a community, right? Where there's, what I see in Valley Spinal Care is it's not just going and getting treated, right? There's a network you now have access to if you want it. There's it's a beacon, you know what I mean? It's part of people's triangle, you know, home, work, and then you're kind of the third place, you know what I mean? And that speaks a lot to the culture you created and how you manage that practice, you know? And I didn't know all that stuff about your the financial toils of the deal.
It's real.
It's you always feel like when you're doing the entrepreneur thing that you're the only one.
Absolutely.
Right? I'm in this shit by myself. I'm the first one to ever fucking go through it, you know? And come to find out, the more you share your story, the more you get out there and network and continually humble yourself, make sure that you're not the smartest person in the room. You're like, oh shit, at 3 years, like, they were in the same spot I am, but look at them in 10, right? And, you know, you start to share those stories and realize that it doesn't have to be part of the deal, but more often than not, it is.
Right.
Yeah. But one of the reoccurring things I notice in your timeline is this mentorship thing.
Right.
Right? Like, somebody sees the value in you that you may not necessarily see in yourself. They see potential, right? And they've continually given you an opportunity to, as I put it as a mentor, prove them wrong, right? I'm going to invest my time, my energy, sometimes my money in you until you don't deserve it anymore.
Correct.
It's yours to lose, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that as a mentor and a fervent seeker of mentorship, I see more often than not, is that the quality mentors I've had lead with the benefit of the doubt. Is that true in your case as well?
Yeah, I mean, you have to, I almost feel like you have to think that way.
Mm-hmm.
For you to truly be mentored or mentor somebody else, you have to have complete faith in that person. Yep. And a desire to actually help them. And until they prove you wrong, mm-hmm. or, you know, I prove somebody else wrong, yep. then why not? You know, mm-hmm. I'm just the reason I love mentorship so much is it's you're serving somebody else. Yep. And like you mentioned with our practice, that's our whole goal, is about serving mm-hmm. a community, like you said, your culture values, right? Yep. I mean, our tagline at VSC is "We can help." Mm-hmm. Not I can help. Right. Not Dr. Mike can help. Mm-hmm. We can help. Right. Meaning my front desk to everybody else, mm-hmm. right? And so, in a way, yeah, I'm mentoring some of my employees. I'm mentoring some of my staff, my associate doctors, but then I'm myself being mentored. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I was always reading about. You need to find a mentor, right? You know, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie. You got to find a mentor, right? Mm-hmm. You know, even Simon Sinek talks about it. Leaders eat last, mm-hmm. right? Yep. There's mention in there. You need a mentor. You yep. need somebody to keep you level-headed. You need yep. somebody to keep you grounded. And that's why I reached out. And, mm-hmm. you know, one of my patients, actually one of my original patients, military guy, he became my mentor. Yeah. Obviously, I realized over time how successful a human he was, mm-hmm. Which made me obviously, well, I got to be like that guy, right? Right. Or better, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of why I reached out, and mm-hmm. that's a mentorship. Yeah. Yeah.
What interests me about your journey is not only your seeking of mentorship, but also you're in a couple of mastermind groups. Yes. Right? And we were talking about the survival guilt, the imposter syndrome of doing what we do as entrepreneurs, and part of that definition being leadership, right? It's very easy to ask the question, why me? Why do I deserve this? You know, am I built for this? Right? But I think deep in your subconscious, you got to realize that if you weren't, you wouldn't want what you want. You wouldn't have chosen to walk this path, right? And you've talked about dealing with some of that with regards to the imposter syndrome or the survival guilt as it relates to being a leader, you know. And what we were talking about earlier was, you know, the not actively seeking these leadership roles until very recently in our lives, right? All through sports, for me, the Marine Corps, you know, I was promoted or chosen. I wasn't choosing. Right. You know what I'm saying? And how has that revelation been for you?
You know, yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, we'll start with, you know, the whole mentor part, right? Yeah, you know, I had this recent experience where I'm super frustrated because I recently applied and got into RIT Center Kit, which is it's a business entrepreneurial group based upon excellence. And it's excellence not in making money, while that might be a caveat of what it brings. Sure. It's about serving others through your business, right? And I joined this group because it's something bigger than myself, and I knew it would challenge me, right? Yep. Well, you know, after going to the first summit, by the way, it's with Ed Milet and Andy Frisella. If you don't, you know those guys, you might want to look them up. They're pretty phenomenal individuals. But what it taught me was it made me reflect on myself of what's really driving me, what's pushing me. And almost it's this, what my mentor called, his name's Dana, former Marine, just so you know.
Once and always, brother. Once
that's
and
right.
always.
He's always a Marine. He says you have survivor's guilt. And what that means is in World War II, you know, people are getting off those boats and some are getting shot and some aren't. Well, the guys that went on to live, they're known as these war heroes. Right. These people that dominated. They dominated their war. They won the war. They were the ones that won. Really? Were they any different than the man next to them? Maybe. Maybe not. But that's called survivor's guilt, right? And these guys are praised now the rest of their life as, look at this World War II vet, right? And I almost feel like my journey's the same way. You know, I got out, and I'm a nobody. I thought I was, but I'm a nobody. I walked into a practice, treating professional athletes. Any common person that loves sports and loves healthcare, they want to treat professional athletes, right? Because it's glamorous, right? I got into this, essentially a better practice for myself. Fell into it. Why? Because I knew a connection, right? I'm going to have to eat shit to reap the rewards later. So what did I do? Sure, I'll follow that. I'll follow that path. Yeah. And it's almost like this. I've been almost walking into a better situation unconsciously, but yet I feel like in some ways I lucked out. Right. Could anybody else have done it? Maybe. But was that person willing to, like I was? And that's where my transition of mindset has occurred. Is so now I've partnered with Dr. Justin Pierce, and we've basically, to give you an idea, when I was there, we were seeing about 400, 450, almost 500 patients a week, right? You know, now we're 6 years later, or from when I joined the practice, almost 6 years later, seeing 800 plus. Yep. Right? And is that all on me? No. Is it all on because I was lucky? No. Some of that you have to do yourself. And I've realized that the survivor's guilt is a thing that motivates me just because I want to prove myself wrong, that no, I'm not just a survivor. Right. You know, I've taken the steps. I've joined these groups like you're talking about. I've gotten the mentorship like I've read about, right? I've tried to create this conducive environment that others put the path before me, and now I'm grabbing and I'm listening and I'm willing to learn and be a student to get to my end goal, right? And so this guilt, which I'm not going to lie to you, I still use today. Yeah. Right? This guilt of, you walked into this. That's not your philosophy. You didn't create Valley Spinal Care, which I didn't. I didn't create Valley Spinal Care. But did I grow my practice? Did I evolve the practice? Did I create other avenues of income with the practice? Absolutely, I did.
Sure. Yep.
Now, basis wasn't mine, but guess what? My power to basically persevere through the hardship shit got me to kind of where I am today. So, yeah, I mean, I'm going to continue to call it survivor's guilt because that motivates the hell out of me.
Sure.
But the power of having a mentor to clear those thoughts and the power of mastermind groups, like for me, RIT, being surrounded by individuals that are either equal or greater than the sum of I am.
Sure.
I can now be the dumbest person in the room and go back down to listening.
Sure.
Right? And getting more knowledge for myself and using that knowledge now to serve other people and help whatever I do kind of blossom.
Yeah. But I think what's interesting and is often missed in that whole mastermind equation, right? Because we run around talking about don't be the smartest guy in the room. I want to be it's celebrated. I want to be the dumbest, the poorest, the least experienced person in the room, right? But what makes the mastermind experience beautiful is that in those areas where you lack experience, you're not making as much money. You don't have the education, right? Somebody else is lacking in one of your strong suits.
Correct.
Right? And that's what makes that amalgamation of experience, education, wealth powerful. Right? Is by virtue of that collective, you're able to fill each other's gaps, right? And everybody is able to bring value to the table.
Correct.
Right? And I think that when it comes to feeling undeserving, it's because we sell ourselves a little too short in not bringing enough to the table when there's immense value somewhere else, which is why you've been vetted and accepted into a group like RIT.
And I feel like everybody in that group, either at one point or they currently still do, feel the same way as I do. We're sitting in there in these summits, and somebody asked a question. He's like, and this is a guy that's made probably over $100 million in his life.
Sure.
Raises his hand, asks a question about basically this not worthy of doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
And this almost version of he's not good enough to be in this type of group, right?
Oh, sure.
Almost being on an island of yourself, right? The entrepreneur island, I like to call it. This is something I thought about is us as entrepreneurs, business owners, even if you're just starting out, you're on your own.
Yeah.
Because guess what? If you weren't, everybody else would be there.
Sure.
And what I've realized with joining these mastermind groups and these things that where I want to be the dumbest person in the room, certain topics I am.
Sure.
And certain topics I'm not. But you're the sum of everyone together is what makes that group so important.
Right.
And allowing yourself to succumb to the changes for the reason that you got in that group is where you're going to grow. To where I was like, this is kind of what I want out of it. And guess what? Somebody punches you right in the face and you're like, and you're going to get this out of it. And it's going to push you to these limits. And guess what? Everyone else in that group, no matter where they're come from, what field they're in, they're feeling the exact same way as you.
Right.
And it's this unique brotherhood or sisterhood, because we're male and female, both are RIT. Yeah. That essentially, brings you together. And it's something I feel, until I joined, I was like, I don't need to be in that, that hoorah type of group, right? I don't need to be in this because guess what? I'm doing it on my own. Until you join it. Yeah. And you realize, man, everyone else thinks the same way as I do. And none of us should be on our own. We should be doing this for other people. We should serve other people. And 100%. Guess what? I think business owners, they want to be the best, right? This is a great example of why I joined this group. I'm consulting for a couple other clinics, and I'm growing these clinics, teach them a new way of healthcare, how to grow, right? How to have the patient's interest first, and guess what? Your financial stuff will come along the road, right? Right. So he calls me. This was Thursday night, and he goes, aren't you scared that you're going to be consulting for all these people, and they're going to find out the better way to do it, and you're going to be out of a job? And I go, no. That's the reason I'm doing it in the first place, is my goal is to change healthcare.
Yeah.
What's the difference if it's my practice, I buy it, change it, put the people in it, and it's mine, versus I consult for 1,000 practices, they do it, and guess what? They turn around and consult for another practices. At the end of the day, I'm still making money.
Right.
That person found a better way to do it because of me. I'm servicing the industry, which is my goal and all, right? I go, at the end of the day, does it really matter if I'm making $1 million a year from consulting versus $3 million a year from owning my own business? Does it really matter when the end goal is there?
Yeah.
And he goes, well, what made you change that way of thinking? I go, being with something greater than myself, right?
Yeah.
Look at these businesses you're in, right? Look at, for instance, your gym has evolved drastically.
Yep.
Right?
Oh,
it was this box.
Yeah.
And it was known as the box, right? And you're like, I just got to get people memberships, right? Your business hasn't grown because you got more memberships.
Right.
Your business grew because you took the time to serve other people, giving them that quality of life.
Yep.
Where did you learn that? Talking with like-minded people just like you, people that have been down the same road as you, other entrepreneurs, right?
Right.
The guy over at Urban, right? He was the guy that helped you, right? He helped you he kind of showed you a way.
Yep.
You evolved your way, and you got into a better situation. But then in this past 5 years, you're like, dude, I need to be part with people that understand me, right?
Yep.
People hold me accountable, somewhere I'm going to learn and feed off of people. And I think that's the importance of joining a mastermind group, joining a podcast you listen to, 2, 3, 4 podcasts you listen to. Make that your core community, right? If not, you're going to be on this island and feeling that emptiness.
Right.
Survivor's guilt all over again. You're not going to grow.
Right.
And if you do grow, it's going to be a limited amount of growth because your vision isn't being pulled and stretched and molded. Just like you and I were talking before, you feel like you're being stretched.
Yeah.
I myself feel like, for me to be where I want to be, I got to get out of my comfort zone.
Oh, yeah.
Who can help me get out of my comfort zone? Oh, RIT people can.
Yep.
Guess what? They can. Or, maybe I should turn into the 20%ers podcast. Did they interview somebody on there? Oh, dude, that guy's going through the same stuff as mine, right? So that's why entrepreneurial podcasts are so important. That's why mastermind groups are so important. Is it will stretch you to your limits and decrease the capacities that you're putting yourself on, right? A lot of that comes from John Maxwell's book, No Limits, right? It talks about the capacities and the limits that you put on yourself. Right. Well, how do you stretch those limits? You better be part of something that's greater than yourself, right? Which is those groups.
They light the path, right, as you were saying, and in that recognition of potential, because one of the things that I notice is people will talk a big game. They have these massive aspirations, right? Completely doable. I wouldn't put them in the realm of the unrealistic by any means, but the life they're living compared to the gap between the life they're living and where they want to go is massive, but they don't know it.
Right.
They think this chasm is a small bridge, and there's growth that's required. There's things that must be done to bridge that massive gap. And unless you surround yourself with a group of people, mentors, people that are operating on the same frequency, that can see that which you cannot, you'll never get there. No. You'll fall victim to shiny object syndrome and chasing opportunities that are distractions that are disguised as opportunities. We've all been there, right? And it's not until you're challenged and your blind spots are exposed that you're able to make real progress. Right. Aaron Hind, who's going to be keynoting the New Year Network in December with me is, he said 3 words to me, and I bring it up all the time: trajectory, not velocity. It's not about getting there fast, right? That's short-lived and it doesn't last, right? That's focusing on velocity. When you're focused on trajectory, that's that thing that you're talking about, that mission, that vision that's bigger than you, creating the best practice, right? Becoming, as you move into consulting, and bettering the industry by virtue of who you are and helping these other clinics adopt better practices, right? What you're doing is essentially creating your coaching tree,
right?
To bring it back to sports. And that, when you look at it down the road, is how you evaluate your impact.
Correct.
How many people are making impact because of the impact I had on them? And I think that is a bigger picture that only comes to the forefront and becomes a part of your mission as a result of surrounding yourself with the right people. And so what's next for you? Like, as far as the industry is concerned and the impact that you're trying to have, what are the shortcomings that you're on a mission to evolve as far as chiropractic is concerned?
Lately and over the past few years, I say we as me and Justin Pierce, we've kind of evolved Valley Spinal Care, or VSC as it is today. Wasn't more upon evolving chiropractic. It was evolving healthcare as a whole, right? So, for instance, my practice isn't our practices aren't just chiropractic. It's your physical therapy, it's your primary care, your pain management, down to your massage, all the way through a surgery center that evolves into stem cell, regenerative medicine, right? Yep. Epidurals, pain management, right? Joint injections, stuff like that, but it's all under one roof, right? And the problem with healthcare that I see is you have your primary care, sending you a referral for PT. That's great. Is there a follow-up? No. Okay, well, the PT says I can't fix it. You might want to go see a chiropractor. Now, the PT doesn't really work with that chiropractor. The chiropractor's like, yeah, this could work. The PT's going to get you a certain part, but really, unless we take care of, the cause, this isn't going to work, right?
Right.
So there's no basically congruity of care throughout the whole process. It's about what it should be about, and what we've evolved our clinic to, and why I'm doing consulting is it's about the patient.
Yeah.
It's patient-centered care. What does the patient want? A patient wants to know they can show up to a clinic, minimal to low out-of-pocket cost, and I can do everything. I can do my PT, my chiropractic, my weight loss, my anti-aging testosterone. Oh, if this happens, I have an injury, I can do my stem cell. I can do it all in one place. And guess what? All in that one place, there's somebody in charge of your care that you trust, you respect. He treats you like family. He knows your name. He knows your wife's name, your husband's name. He knows your kids' names. He knows what sports you are. He knows your birthdays. He knows your anniversaries. And guess what? It's about the patient. It's not about your pain, not about your problem. You start changing healthcare's philosophy from pain or problem to what do you want to do?
Right.
What do you want to be? What do you want to grow? What do you want to do? Oh, you want to play more tennis. You want to do more of this. You want to lose a bit of weight, right? There's a reason, and there's an emotional connection behind healthcare that nobody looks at. Everyone's looking at, I take this to cause this, and I want to mask this. Do people really want that? Or is there an emotional connection behind it?
Sure.
Patient A, comes in, knee pain. Why do you have knee pain? Oh, because I played this rec softball game. Sweet. Is that it? Or does that person feel a connection with his softball team? Right? It's his buddies. It's their company connection, right? So when they can't come into your clinic, they no longer get that emotional connection to their club or team. Right? So your goal as a practitioner is to change their life. Your not goal is to take care of the pain. And guess what? After you fix them, dude, how you doing? How's your batting average? What's that group doing? What are you guys doing? What are you guys being a part of, right?
Right.
Oh, do you guys go out after? What do you guys do, right? If you make healthcare based upon the personal level of a patient, the emotional connection of a patient,
Yep.
healthcare is going to change. And that's what we've done at VSC.
Yep.
We no longer care about the immediate source of income. It's going to come. You do things right. You treat people right. You provide value.
Yep.
And you create a culture, just like you were saying in the very beginning. You have work. You got home. Oh, and guess what? You got VSC.
Yeah.
They're your family, right? That's where I see healthcare transitioning. That's why I'm consulting. That's why I have this vision to literally transform the country's healthcare.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do it. I'm going to consult or buy clinics and change the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
And I'm starting with clinics as Texas. Why? Because Texas is the key to healthcare.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. American Medical Association is huge. And guess what? Chiropractics, they've been battling about this whole supremacy of healthcare. You know, they're going to take away my, chance to diagnose. I don't give a shit what you're going to do. I'm going to teach you how to run a business based upon patient care, and we're going to include it all. We're going to work together.
Yeah.
We're not going to separate ourselves from each other. And that's the problem with healthcare, man, is everyone's like, oh, I have the answer. Well, I have the answer. Can't more than one person have the answer?
Sure.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, can't somebody work with the physical therapist or the personal trainer and not think, well, I'm the doctor, whatever I say says?
Right.
It's such a narrow way of thinking in this day's society. Check your ego out the door.
100%.
There's somebody else out there that has an answer that's better than yours.
Right.
And guess what? If it's not better, it's just as good as yours. And you need to try it.
Yeah.
So that's why if you integrate healthcare the way we have, ranging from basic care to full-on surgery, managed by one operation, no more having to deal with different billers, different codes, different charges, different outcomes of care. Guess what? It's all going to be relative and playing across the board. So there's no reason why you would want to avoid that model. And it's funny. It's starting to trickle down into the specialties like hematology and oncology. They're starting to be bought by big Honor Healths and Mayo clinics because they're realizing that these clinics here are a little more successful than the big hospital cares. Why is it? Why are they more successful? Because they give a shit about the person. Right? They personalize it about the person. They remember the details. When you go to a Honor Health hospital, do you think those people give a damn about you? No, because it's about the money. Right. The money will come if you treat the person the way they should be. So, my journey with this is that's one of the things I'm doing. I'm trying to dive more in the community, be more community-based. Trying to create some more other avenues to reach out, whether it be indoor sports facilities, creating new clubs, reaching out because I love sports, into more of how I can provide the community different way of thinking based upon simple needs. I'm kind of getting into more not real estate because I feel like it's so saturated. I'm getting into creative avenues. So I've had a few business things come up in my book over the past year that have been like, you should really look into this. They're not flashy things. They're things that over time are going to make some money. And they're things that over time are going to bring value to people that aren't flashy. And so now I'm kind of in this thing. I'm like, I don't want to be the new hot thing. I want to do something that's kind of different, creative. That's something 5-10 years ago I'd been like, that's not glamorous. No one gives a damn about that. I don't care. I'm going to put my attention out of those things. Because over the time I've evolved, one of my mentor, to give you an idea of not flashy, is he was getting paid $450,000 a year working for a guy that basically all they did was crating and packaging. He knew he could do it better by creating relationships with these corporations, and being almost a personal asset to this company, So what did he do? He went out and created 3 companies based upon that reason. If you look at it at the end of the day, it's called creating and packaging. Very similar to Amazon, right? Is it glamorous? Is it shiny? Nope. But guess what? It works. And he's successful. And he's created these other multi-billion corporations a sense of a home. So his guy bids out deals that beats out the Amazons, that beats out the Walmarts, that beats out these people. And so I've started to evolve my way of thinking into, what do people want, man? People want relationships.
Absolutely.
And that's why the Mastermind. and RIT for me is so key, man. You are with relationships with people that are going to push you to the limits, and that's why I'm just like, dude, it's a different time for me. I'm finally to the point where nowhere in hell have I made it. I always have that survivor's guilt, but that's kind of where I see healthcare going, and that's kind of where I'm headed.
That's awesome, man. Where, like, what are the signs? We were talking about trying on Breitlings and stuff like that.
Right.
You're a watch guy. I'm a watch guy. You know, we were talking about signs and that you've made it, right? As you move from one tier to the next. You talked about the boat, right? So that you could have this, share the same experiences you had as a kid with your kids. What are the tiers for you? Like, what's the next thing? When will you know that you've made it to the next level? Not made it like absolutely, but like, what's the next thing? What's the next sign for you?
You know, in one of Ed Milet's book, he talks about a phrase called blissful dissatisfaction. And so, well, what does that mean, right? Blissfully dissatisfied, right? When you and he uses this analogy, and I love this analogy, right? And it's when you go to a Mastro's or an Ocean Club or what's the place now? It's the Ocean 44.
Yeah.
Here's Scottsdale, guys. Ocean 44. It's pretty great. You bite into a steak, right? God, that's a great steak. But guess what? You're dissatisfied. So you have another bite, right? Of that steak, and you keep going, and you keep going, and you keep going, right? It's the same analogy, right? So me personally, I bought a boat recently. And is that a financial smart decision? No, it's not. But what it creates for me is an outlet, right? I am now satisfied with the direction I'm going to have my kids, create memories with my kids, right? Create those moments that I had as a kid, right? Because I'll be honest with you, I've traveled the majority of countries in the world. Some of the most fondest moments were on the boat, hanging out, playing music with my family, siblings, friends, doing whatever, right? So I created this environment now that I'm going to spend with my kids. You know, I have 3 kids, and you get 18 years. I know people say you have a lifetime, you get 18 years. And really, if you think about it, you only think about 15 years.
Sure.
Because 3 are not moldable, right? I mean, I don't really remember a lot from when I was 3 years old. Right? So you got 15 years to mold yourself on these kids. And so everything I do now, things I buy, things I invest in are for my kids. So the boat was one, right? But yeah, you're right. I am a watch guy. I don't wear many watches, but I like the look of watches. And recently, you know, I have been wearing watches. I don't have one on today, but what are you going to do? But I was in New York and with my wife, did a nice little vacay. And, you know, 2 things kind of go into this. What do I spend money on? What things do I know I made it, right? And my wife and I, when we travel, I indulge.
Sure.
I take first class, right? We stay at the nicest places, right? And I do this for 2 reasons. A, because it gives me that blissful dissatisfaction of, dude, you know, I stayed at the St. Regis, dude. You know what the St. Regis is? It's one of the best world-class facilities in the world to stay at. I want to know what it's like to be able to stay there whenever I want it. Right. That, to me, is something that I do. We went to the best shows. We had the best tickets. That is something I do with my wife. And the best experiences that we can do, right? And those are things that I indulge on that give me that satisfaction. But, like, I tell you what, man, I'm going to keep going because I want more of this. We walked into that Breitling store. By the way, after we walked into one of my wife's stores where a piece of luggage cost $15,000 for a piece of Louis Vuitton luggage, I'm like, what the hell is that for? Like, it's a waste of my day. I look over across the street, and there's these big brownstone almost looking like homes in New York City, and I look over, and I'm like, I'm on Redfin. I'm like, how much is this worth? It's like $30 million for like 3,000 square feet. And I'm like, to me, it's a waste of money, but whatever. And as we're walking past, this basically van unloads 15 pieces of Louis Vuitton luggage. I go, that person's luggage is worth more than, I don't know, all my cars combined, my house, I don't know, whatever, just in luggage, right? And I was like, you know what? I was like, good for them. I was like, because that's what makes them happy. So then we keep walking, going to the Breitling store, and I was like, you know what? I was like, I got to try one of these on.
Have to.
Why do I need to try one on? I need to try one on so I know what it feels like on my wrist. I need to know what it feels like to have that moment of, you know what, this is your reward for all the shit you've done the past 10 years. But it's also there. That watch is there, and this is why I chose watches, is to remind me of this is why you keep going. You did this, and you can afford this, right? And I put this watch on. It was a $30,000 watch. And could I have paid for it? Yeah, absolutely. There's other things I want to do, right? And so the watch would be probably my first thing where I look at and say, you know what, I achieved these goals over these next, basically right now I have about a 4.5-year window where I have these goals I'm going to achieve. And you know what, damn well, if in these 4.5 years I achieve what I'm going to achieve, I'm going to buy that watch. Because it's also going to be there to remind me of, hey, you're a fucking badass. Look at you. You held yourself there to accountability, and you didn't buy it before you can afford it. You didn't buy it before you half-assed your goals. You didn't buy it because you achieved 70% of what you said you were going to do. No, you bought it because you did exactly what you said you were going to do.
Fucking right.
And you know what? I haven't really thought about anything more than that. You know, I have vision boards, and I have things I want. But like I said, majority of it is based upon my family. And the next 15 years I get with all 3 of my kids to mold them and teach them how to be essentially an 80s or a 90s kid again, and not this version of kids coming out of school now. It petrifies me, man. So like my main investments now are my kids. The Breitling watch is going to be there in 4.5 years, and I will take a picture of it and send it to you. But yeah, man,
we can sport Breitlings together.
Absolutely. I mean, your watch right now is way better than my watches right now. This thing is great. This timepiece right here, boys.
Shout out to S-Force. No, but I think, you know, you bring up a very good point, right? In terms of the exercise of trying it on, taking it for a test drive. And I've shared this conversation with people before. As it pertains to cars, right? You know, in terms of automobiles, you know you've made it when you're driving Lambo, Ferrari, Rolls, Benz, whatever, right? But my deepest fear for the longest time was, in the very beginning, it's like, well, you know, I'm pulling out Linton buttons. There's no way I could walk in there, be taken seriously to even test drive the damn thing, number one. And then eventually, because of these groups and mentors that I've had, it was like, no, you need to go have that experience.
Absolutely.
Because the other side of that is, what if you do all that fucking work to get that watch, to get that car, right? You go in there, you buy the damn thing sight unseen, and you realize you fucking hate it. You don't fit in it.
Right.
You don't like it. Right? That is also, and in my opinion, more terrifying than feeling undeserving.
I also think it doesn't allow your mind to grasp the basically your vision wholeheartedly, right? If you don't go sit in that car, I'm not a big car guy, I drive a truck.
Right.
But there's a lot of car guys out there. And if you don't get in there and see that car and feel that leather steering wheel, and you don't allow yourself almost that moment, you're not going to have that extra driving force to get to that moment. Right? So people aren't thinking big enough.
Sure.
The scale of people thinking big enough, who said it? I was listening to something, you know, Goggins, right? Goggins is firm on the belief of, you know, when you're at failure or you're at achieving your most max capacity, he thinks you're only at 40%, right? I don't know where he gets his percents from, but all I do know is people's vision of what they can do and what they can achieve is so pinpointed, like a pinpoint camera, right? So like they have these pinpoint focus cameras which just focus on one little thing. And then what happens when you broaden the what's it called, the aperture or whatever it's called of the camera, it gets huge, right? If you sit in that car, it gets big. If you don't sit in that car and you say, oh, I think that's something I want to do, you're never going to get there. And it's just a thing.
It's true.
And without having a group that's going to push you to get there, accountability, a mentor, somebody that knows where you want to be or is where you want to be.
Absolutely.
Right? Or somewhere where you want to surpass, right? You know, in my group in RIT, you have Andy Frisella and Ed Milet. Ed Milet's worth over $500 million, right? Dude, his goal ain't stopping there. He wants to be a billionaire.
Yeah.
Same thing with Andy. Andy's on track to be the largest supplemental company in the world this year in sales. Right. You think he's going to stop there?
Nope.
No. So the only way they're going to get there is they're going to start dabbling in shit that's going to make them uncomfortable.
Yep.
And you're right. Yeah, you're going there, lint in your pockets, feeling a little uncomfortable. You know how uncomfortable I felt? I was wearing a Lululemon shirt, some whatever. I remember I was wearing some, Target. Just Target skinny jean shorts, ripped. Okay. Dude, in my Converse, right? I'm walking in this store with less money on than it cost for one of those screws in the Breitling. And what's funny is going in there, it was like, all right, you're thinking too small, my man. And what's funny is just stepping into that store or stepping in that car dealership, you're getting uncomfortable. Yep. You're pushing yourself. You're stretching your limits.
Absolutely.
Right? And so there's a lot to be said with
I call it taking life for a test drive. Right. Make sure that's where you want to go. Right. You know what I mean? Because you have to set your sight on something, right? And in the beginning, right, a lot of what you set your sight on is based on what you've seen, right? Oh, I want to be like Dr. Mike. He drives a big-ass truck. I want a big-ass truck. You better make sure you want a big-ass truck and not wait till you can afford that big-ass truck to find out that you're a sports car guy.
Right.
You know, right? And that's, you're talking about opening the aperture, but you're also making sure that you're shifting the focus to what it is you exactly want, right? And, for that, I'm extremely grateful to have this conversation with you today. The progress that I've got to witness and observe from beating the streets to the evolution that you have now in terms of the opportunity to change the industry of healthcare. Right. By your presence, your ability to consult and mentor and show a better way is massive. You're building your coaching tree, my man, and I'm extremely happy to walk in your circle.
Chipping away at it.
And I'm excited for everything that you're about to achieve above and beyond what you've already done. And I really look forward to the day that we're sitting on this podcast again, sporting Breitlings together.
Man, I appreciate you having me on here. Once again, for everyone that's listening, this is out of my comfort zone. Just so you know, this is pushing me to the limit. I didn't want to do a podcast. I've always thought it'd be cool to be on a podcast. First podcast I've ever been on in my life. I hate talking in front of people. Just so everyone knows is listening. This, to me, has been a blessing for you to have me on here. And I genuinely appreciate the time that you've taken to set this up, to be harping on me, to get me on this thing, and just for your openness and your super genuine mindset that you have towards people and individuals. And so I acknowledge you for setting this up and having this platform for others to be a part of is quite a blessing that people don't realize until they start listening. And this book, I'm definitely going to read it. I haven't read it. I'm being honest to everybody. I haven't read the book. I'm going to read it, and I'm going to get things. And one thing I'm going to add, when you read a book, when you listen to a podcast, when you listen to a speech or somebody out there, for you to absorb all of it ain't going to happen. Right. Look for the nugget. Sure. Look for the nugget that you can apply. And guess what? Once you applied it and you're marinating and it's soaking in there, find the other nugget. Yeah. One of my favorite phrases is I let it marinate. Yeah. Right? If you let it marinate and you don't jump to conclusions, that's kind of where you're going to be at, man. And I think you've let this podcast marinate, and it's soaking to be something big, and it's growing, and it's big. And I know you said you over like 1 million downloads, and that's that's 1 million more people than I know. That's for damn sure. So once again, man, I just want to acknowledge you, and thank you for having me on.
I appreciate it, man. Yep. For the 20%ers out there not familiar with Dr. Mike, VSC. Where can they find you? Support you?
Yeah, so my Instagram is Dr. Mike, Dr. Mike, Mikeaz. That's my Instagram name. My business is VSC, Integrative Medicine, obviously. And that's my Instagram for that. Yeah, so I mean, those are kind of my outlets of social media.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate you being here today.
Thanks,
man.
brother.
Thank you, dude.
Thanks for having me.
And really big appreciation to the Inner Circle Cafe for allowing us to do the podcast today. If you're in the South Scottsdale area, this is the spot to come, get work done, network, grab a great cup of coffee. Thank you so much. And until next time, guys, make sure you focus on the things that matter: health, wealth, relationships, and time. We'll see you next week.